Hello, hello?
Hello?
Hello? Is anyone out there?
It's a mom's night out. Tonight, we have the pleasure of sitting down with Alex Thompson, who's a certified infant swimming resource instructor, or ISR instructor, and the new proud owner of ISR Metro West, where she teaches children survival swim lessons. Alex is also a certified licensed registered nurse who worked in pediatrics for 8 years before she made the transition to stay-at-home mom with her 3 children. She was recently inspired by the skills that her own children learned by taking ISR swim lessons and quickly realized that she was telling all of her friends and family about the program. The problem was there weren't enough swim instructors in Massachusetts that taught ISR. That staggering realization, coupled with her own tenacity and passion, solidified her decision to join ISR's mission that not one more child drowns. When Alex isn't in the pool, you can find her trying to keep up with her 3 kids, volunteering at preschool, aimlessly wandering the aisles of Target, watching The Real Housewives, and folding laundry. I know Alex because our husbands sold software together and we spent lots of summer days on the beaches of Cape Cod. Tonight, we are going to learn all about ISR, as well as chat with Alex about her top recommendations for swim safety to keep your kids and family safe all summer long. And I just wanted to say, Alex, that I'm so proud of you for what you're doing here with ISR and for going back to work while having 3 busy kids. We all know it's not easy, and you're amazing.
Thank you.
So welcome to a Mom's Night Out.
Thanks, guys. I'm so excited.
Okay, so the topic of the evening is swim safety for the summer. We're heading into summer, and everyone's at pools, at beaches, and swimming is dangerous, right?
Yes, it can be.
Even being around water is dangerous.
Being around water is dangerous. So I guess we wanted to jump right into it and set the stage for us. Why is water safety so important?
Oh my gosh.
Before we get into ISR and all that.
So jumping off of how you just opened, I think like swimming, you have to be safe to have fun, right? And that's like what I always tell parents is, your kid will have fun at the end of this. Like they'll be able to play in a pool and bounce around and have a great time. But in order to do that, they have to be safe. And like for the older kids that I see, that is really like easily communicated to them. So they can understand that a little bit too. And I don't know if anybody saw, but the CDC just came out with new statistics from 2022 where fatal drownings in children ages 1 to 4 was up by 28% from the data in 2019. Wow. So that's crazy. And it's
going in the wrong direction.
And it's heartbreaking because it's so preventable.
Yeah. Why do you think it's trending up?
I think like people being home for COVID.
I think COVID had a lot to do with it. For example, the pool that I teach at right now used to host their own swim lessons. And during COVID, they lost their instructors and they didn't get traction for their programs. Jeez. So now they have independent contractors like myself who come in and teach. But I think accessibility during the pandemic was an issue for sure.
Whoa. Yeah. And drowning is the number 1 cause of death. Right, in cause of death in kids ages 1 to 4.
1 to 4.
Mm-hmm. And the second leading cause of death in kids in the next age group.
It is up until 10.
Oh my gosh,
which is wild.
Yeah, which is basically all of our children.
Yeah,
in this room.
Yeah,
qualify. Which is very scary.
Yep.
Okay, so what is ISR?
So ISR stands for Infant Swimming Resources. What we do is not so much swim lessons in the way you would think of it. Like you're not going to get the next Michael Phelps out of an ISR session. You're going to get a kid who can do aquatic problem solving. So that's like having the knowledge, the skill set to make like a judgment call in the water and know how your body is going to move. So like for babies, they learn their own buoyancy in the water. So they, instead of using a floaty, are taught to float in the water and they know exactly how their body relates on top of water. So that's like our big thing. It's the technical term for it is called proprioception, like how your body moves in space. And when you use something like a floaty, like a flotation device, a puddle jumper, you don't have an accurate sense of what your body would do in water. So that's like the foundation of what we're teaching. And it's all through shaping behavior through positive reinforcement, while maintaining, safety as the absolute number one priority the entire time.
Yeah.
And you touched on a little bit of how ISR is different from regular swim lessons. So my kids have always been in the regular swim lessons. Is like, do people go through ISR and then go back to regular swim? Like, what is the difference? Or is it you're graduating ISR and you're...
Or could you do ISR
and then
after
swim?
you've already taken swim lessons?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like,
you
what
totally can. So yes and yes.
Yes is all around.
Yes is all around. So kids really can't learn traditional stroke work the way we think of it until they're 5 or 6 years old. Like they don't have the attention span for it, the physical ability to put all those pieces together. So what we often see is kids come through ISR and then do like maintenance lessons and refresher lessons. And then when they're around 6, they can enter into more traditional swim lessons where they can learn stroke work, and they have the ability to learn like the breath work that goes with that also. So yes. And then I have had many children who start in more typical, what we think of as swim lessons, like group lessons or even privates. And then they come the ISR route because they aren't progressing in a reliable way that their families would hope that they would.
Yeah. Fascinating.
Okay. This leads me to my next question. What age can an infant start ISR?
Okay, you're going to be shocked by this, but 6 months old. So an infant can be 6 months old, and as long as they can sit up independently for at least a minute, they can begin ISR lessons. And the reason for that is because they then have the musculature to like make rotation in water. So for an infant, we teach them the roll back to float. So it starts by teaching them how to breathe comfortably on their back, teaches them that like being on your back and breathing is a really safe place for you. Like that is where you want to be. But then of course the progression from there is if you fell in, you'd probably be face in. Yeah. So then we start to teach them at different angles how to find that float. And unless they're able to sit up independently, they don't have like the abdominal muscles to make those rotations. So it's 6 months and able to sit up independently.
That makes sense.
What would you say like the majority, like what is the breakdown of age groups that you're currently seeing? Like is it trending more on the 6 month side, middle, older, or is it just ebbs and flows?
Yeah, I think it ebbs and flows. I think currently I have the most toddlers, like the 2 to 3 is a really popular time because, I mean, we all have kids that age. They're wild cards, like some of them, like my own daughter thought she could walk on water when she was 2. I think parents see that and they're like, oh my God, I have to do something. So that's a really common age I see. And also we see a lot of 2-year-olds because a lot of group lessons don't start until 3 years old. Oh. So parents who aren't interested in doing like a mommy and me swim class, look for the ISR route for something reliable.
Okay, and talk about that. So when you sign your kid up for ISR, you're not getting in the pool with them.
No.
You're handing them we're handing our children.
Oh, yeah.
To like talk about, I think just like what the lesson is like. And then I also found it fascinating that it's daily.
Yes.
And so I think what's the lesson like and then the length.
Sure. So lessons are 5 consecutive days a week. So for me personally, I only teach on weekdays. And each lesson is 10 minutes every single day. And they're one-on-one instruction, which allows us to really focus on that one child and their safety and what they need. Because like even I had identical twins in my last session and the 2 of them learned extremely differently, even though they were identical. It was so fascinating. So the ability to have individual instruction is huge. And the reason for the 5 days a week for short periods of time is twofold. One, because consistency is key to like building muscle memory. And 2, 10 minutes is like actually kind of a long time when you're the only one swimming, right?
Yeah.
Like if you think about a group lesson, there's a lot of waiting involved. You're in, you're out, you're in, you're out. But 10 minutes of actual swim, that's work for a little body. So like we do take breaks every couple minutes, but it's a lot for them. And really from an attention span perspective, it's really all they can handle. And then they get a little tired.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
And then the program length, 6 weeks?
6 weeks on average. Yes. There's something magical about 30 lessons. I'm learning like something magical happens.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, some kids need a little bit more time and that's okay. Like you just meet every kid where they are and you give them exactly what they need. But, and then like life happens, you know, you get sick, you're teething, you know, something changes the flow of the week and, you know, we might go a little bit longer, and like kids who have other, you know, developmental needs or things like that could take longer.
What if you have an older kid, like, well, I guess older than 4, but you know, I have a 7-year-old. Is that too old?
I don't think so. I have taught 6-year-olds and they do like exceedingly well and by and large, like pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Because they have the benefit of learning through like the reinforcement of physical touch, which is like our primary reinforcer, but you can also use verbal cues with them.
Yeah.
And that is really helpful for their learning. And they have the physical ability most of the time to just really pick it up quickly.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, because like I feel like all of our older kids can swim, but I think about, you know, we're all boating a lot and I'm like, I don't know if my kids would know the cues, like my older kid even.
Yeah, like get on your back.
Turn to your back, like if you fell in without a life vest, right?
Well, I think it's shocking too, like the act of just like fall, like if you're on a boat and you fall in,
Yeah.
it's very shocking, like even for like an adult, you know, just to be like, oh my God, I'm in the water. Okay,
Yes.
what do we have to do?
Yeah.
Totally.
And don't you practice ISR in clothing as well?
We do. So at the end of every session, we practice, we do a lesson in summer clothing and a lesson in winter clothing, which I learned. I did my training in Charlotte and I learned like winter clothing there is vastly different than winter clothing here.
Like, here's some pants.
My older children did ISR and they were in like full snowsuits. And when I was down in Charlotte, the kids were showing up in like long sleeve shirts. And I was like, I'm sorry, where's your parka?
Not
And they were like,
the
we don't
same.
do that here.
Snow boots.
Where are your snow boots? But yes, that's a huge part of it because most kids find themselves in trouble when they're not supposed to be swimming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So most accidental fall-ins happen while children are clothed.
And it's very different.
And
Those
it's
clothes weigh you
very
down.
different.
It is. And we talk often in my house with my oldest because we have the boat and grandparents have pools. We're always talking about that panic that sets in. Because I think that's like your first instinct when you're young, when you fall, at least from what I can remember. We were having sort of a chit chat before we started recording about the training, but it's really intense. And I think that probably people don't appreciate how much training you went through to get this certification.
Yeah, it is really intense, but in the best way because I came out of it feeling so prepared for caring for people's children. So I, for a little background, am a nurse. I've been a nurse since I graduated college, and I worked in pediatrics. So I was lucky to have that like physiology background already under my belt. But that's also incorporated into the ISR training, is learning about all different types of medical conditions children might have, learning about like obviously the importance of breathing and, you know, like assessing respirations and all those things. And then it's every day so I was gone for 6 weeks, doing my training.
You
and
literally left your family for 6 weeks.
I literally left my family for 6 weeks,
Yeah.
and I
young
was
kids at the time, very young.
You're amazing.
very young kids. And that's like how passionately I feel about this, where I was willing to do it. And I went to Charlotte and I learned from like 2 of the MVPs of ISR. They're like super, super impressive women. And I was in water every day for 3 hours. And then it was 3 hours of class time every day. And then there was like a ton of video review. So you'd take videos of yourself, of your instructor, and then you'd have to critique it of like what you were doing, what you could do better, what worked, what didn't work. And then I was lucky enough to train with somebody else. So there were two of us there. So we got to, observe each other often, which is so helpful. The more you do something, it's great. But for me, I'm a very visual learner. So the more I watched it, the better it was for me. And then before I left, there was also probably another 20 hours of class time that was all virtual. Wow. So it's pretty intense. And then we all have to be CPR and first aid certified.
Clearly.
Of course.
So then is there one certifying body for ISR, or are there multiple? I'm just thinking of, I'm sure there's some sham people who are claiming to do ISR. Is that not happening?
Oh no, that's happening. That's totally happening. But
how do people know they're getting a real bona fide trained specialist?
That's a great question. So there is one governing body. It is Infant Swimming Resources. We all get a printed certificate. So if you have a question about it, you can definitely ask to see that. And also, if you go on infantswimmingresources.com, there's an instructor locator. So you can validate that the person you're talking to is an instructor, and you can find people near you.
Oh,
that's amazing.
Sense. Yeah.
Wait, so were you a swimmer growing up, or is this a new world for you?
This is a new world for me. I swam. I enjoyed swimming.
Yeah.
But I was not a swimmer. And I really got into this when my third child was born, and we joined a pool club that summer. And at the time I had a 4-year-old, a 19-month-old, and a newborn. And I was like, I can't do this. I was at the pool with a baby and a baby carrier, a savage 19-month-old little girl, and a 4-year-old.
I'm picturing it right now.
Jenny and a 4-year-old who thought he could swim but couldn't. Yeah. And it was terrifying.
It's crippling anxiety.
It's crippling anxiety. Yeah. So we spent the entire summer at home because I was too scared to go. And I was like, there has to be a better way. Yeah. And the following summer, I had a friend in town who all shared the same water anxieties as me. And she found my friend Emily of ISR Boston North. And she sent me the link, and I was like, this is the answer to my prayers. This is everything I've been looking for. And so my 2 younger kids took ISR, and it was incredible. It was amazing. And the summer we were taking ISR, my youngest son, Rex, was 16 months at the time, and he fell into the pool at that same pool club 3 times, and he was able to float.
Wow.
So, it's just huge peace of mind. It's just another layer of protection.
Yeah.
And then, now that you've been out and teaching, I guess it's success stories. Have people come back to you? Have you heard of, you go through this training with your kids and then it actually working. You had it with your son, Rex, but other examples, that's got to be so rewarding.
It is so rewarding. I was actually last week, I was having a tough day, and I was texting my master instructor who I learned from. And she sent me back a video of one of the students we trained together. It was a long-standing student of hers who was just taking longer. So she was in her second session while I was training. And it's a video from their ring cam where the dad is cleaning the pool on one end, and she's just playing around, and she falls in and immediately gets into her float and just waits there until he picks her up. It was so amazing to see, and just felt so rewarding.
Oh,
it was really
for a tough day.
Yeah, after a tough day. And then just also last week, I have a 5-year-old student in my session right now who came to me terrified of water. Was going to a swim school and just put the brakes on and no longer all of a sudden wouldn't get in the water. So his mom came to me being please help. We have a pool. What do I do? So he's been coming to me for 4 weeks now. He's crushing it. He's doing amazing. He's no longer afraid, and he's super confident, and he fell into his pool. A 5-year-old, right? You kind of think a 5-year-old's pretty stable. That wouldn't happen to them, but it did. And I said to his mom, well, what happened? And she was like, this. He swam and floated and swam until he got to the edge of the pool, which is like the exact goal.
Yeah.
So
It's amazing.
Wow, that really
couldn't see it on ring cam, but I saw it on a mom's face. Like just the relief, and it was awesome.
I remember when you signed your kids up for those lessons, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And now I'm like, all right, I need to do this.
I know. I'm feeling the same way about my little guy.
Okay, so I think as we've evolved in our podcasting skills, we always think about a takeaway. Like we wanted to provide our audience with a takeaway. You're an expert in your field and in swim safety, and we want to see if you could give our listeners some like top 3 pieces of advice for swim safety at the pool.
Okay. So when you're thinking about pool safety, I don't know if I can narrow it down to 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's okay. Like maybe top 3, or you could do 5 if you want to do 5.
Okay, we might be closer to 5.
Okay, I
So
love
the big
that.
things are barriers and alarms. So like having those fences, having pool alarms. Somebody told me the other day about a bracelet that's like water activated.
Oh.
I think all those things are great, but I would also just be mindful that they can provide a false sense of security where you're relying on it. And if it malfunctions, you just can't. So I would just put that as like a layer of protection.
Okay.
I think having effective life jackets, like I know you said pool, but some people opt to, like when they're at a big family party or gathering, opt to put their child in a life vest while they're just like playing around because, the bystander effect is real.
Yeah.
So I would just make sure those things are effective, meaning like they're not going to keep your child face down inadvertently.
So life vests versus the puddle jumpers that, by the way, I'm raising my hand. I'm guilty.
Yeah,
My
me
kids
too.
have puddle
Yeah,
jumpers.
I mean, to be fair, I used one also with my oldest son because I didn't know.
Yeah.
But those are actually like so not good because they keep kids, I'm digressing a little bit, but they keep kids in a vertical posture in water. So if they were to fall in without one, they would stay vertical. And that's a super exhausting position for a child to be in. Like their heads, especially the younger kids, their heads are the heaviest parts of their body. So if they're vertical, they're going to tire out really fast. So like what we teach them in ISR is to be horizontal.
Because they fall in and just equate like, oh, when I'm usually in the pool, this is how my body is. And they go to that position.
Okay.
Exactly.
So if you're going to put something on them, an effective life vest.
An effective life vest is good. And I would test it, like make sure they can float in it on their back.
On their back. Pro tip.
Yeah.
Pro tip. So barriers, effective life vests, supervision, as I just mentioned, is key. Like as cheesy as it sounds, you literally have to be like, okay, you are now watching this child. Like you have to be sure. And like something else about that is like if your kid is like more than an arm's length away from you and they're not competent in water, they're too far away. So that's just something good to keep in mind. Having like emergency plan in mind. So like, what are you going to do? Like, do you know CPR if like, God forbid something happened?
Yeah.
And then of course, giving your children like the gift of water competency is huge. So they can assess like, what do I do in this situation?
Yeah.
Like, what do I do? That wall is, or those stairs are too far away from me. So I can swim and then I know I'm going to have to float from, and catch my breath. And then I'm going to have to swim again, or I'm going to wait until somebody picks me up. So give them the ability to feel confident and competent so that they can like assess the situation they're in. And even the youngest little peanuts can do that.
That's wild.
love
Crazy. I can't imagine like a 6-month-old.
I know.
What about, is it different? So pools, but then what about like beach? Like I feel like that adds a whole new element because it's large. There's waves, there's sand. There's a lot going on at the beach.
There's like shallow and then deep.
Yeah. I think like we're talking freshwater, similar to pool safety, right?
Yeah.
Ocean, I think, is its own animal. I would say the same about like the life vests if you're on a boat. even if you're on shore and you're not sure, you could use a life vest.
Yeah.
And I think I would just continue to like talk to your kids about the importance of like staying close to an adult and, you know, the reality of water. And I know that's really hard with young kids, but like even a child as young as like 2.5, you know, you can start to talk to them about like, you know, you have to stay close to an adult. You have to stay close to, you know, you have to stay where you can stand, you know, things like that. But I think unfortunately, ocean has like unpredictable elements that we can't plan for.
And then I feel like a tip that when we had the pre-call that I was like, oh, wow, I guess I really hadn't thought about that is the bright bathing suits.
Yes. Bright bathing suits are huge. I don't know if any of you have seen on Instagram, that was like a really popular thing at the start of the season, or maybe it was just targeted to me.
Targeting you.
Probably just targeted to me, but there's this really cool image with like all the colors of the rainbow bathing suits underwater. And it's like, how many bathing suits can you see?
Oh, no, I did not get
And
that.
there's like really 11 in there, but most people were like, I can only see like 3.
Wow.
So like neon is your best friend.
Okay. Wow.
Blue is not great. Green isn't great. Neon bright.
We should
then
post
you can
that
see
on
them.
stories.
Yeah, I can send it to you. And I think there's this misconception, just going back to supervision, like from movies and stuff, that drowning is like this loud event. And while it can be with adults, it is not with children. It is often like very quick and very silent. So you just like, you have to watch children.
Yeah.
I feel like a couple years ago, I have a story like that where my daughter, she still talks about it to this day. She's 7 and we were at a friend's pool and she calls it, she's like, remember, she would say for the longest time, when I drained at the pool. I was like, well, no. But she was right next to me and she stepped off the step. And I was talking to someone. She was right next to me. And she was, I remember turning.
Panicked face.
So
And
scary.
looking, I could see her eyes looking up. But you're right, it was silent. And she was right next to me.
Yeah,
It happened so fast.
it does. It happens so fast.
And she remembers it.
So scary.
Draining.
Draining. I'm draining.
Draining.
Mom, remember when I drained that time? I'm like, well.
I do want to finish with ISR because I think there's probably some misconceptions about ISR. I mean, personally, I really didn't know much about it before we were talking about this episode, because in my mind, I thought it was just that like you just throw the babies in the pool and like you kind of hope that they turn around and float. Like, is that a big misconception? Like, what's really happening? And then anything else that people have.
In almost every discovery call that I have, parents ask me that. So like, you're just going to push them in, and I'm like, no.
People think it's really just like you throw the baby in the water and you're like,
People do. And there are also a lot of like anti survival swimming people out there that like to propagate that as what we do. But it's not at all. So I think, as I mentioned earlier, like we have priorities, and safety is the absolute number one. And under that umbrella is like what we call breath control. So no kid goes underwater at any age until we're confident that they're going to hold their breath.
Amazing.
And you can really teach that in a super gentle way. So for a baby, that's just like getting them comfortable being on their back. So it's like they lay down, they inhale, and we just pick them right up. They lay down, they inhale, we pick them right up. And then you slowly and incrementally ask for a little bit more and a little bit more, but as they are capable of doing it.
Yeah.
And then for an older child, what that looks like is, you know, we always start by teaching them, and I guess this is something else you could do with your kids in a pool, is always show them like where the exits are when you go into a new pool. And so like a big foundation of what we do is teaching kids where the wall is, and like giving value to the edge, the wall of a pool, because not every pool has a ladder. Not every pool has stairs. Every pool has an edge or a wall. So that's really where we start gaining, like giving that more value than even me, who's in the water with them. Like, you want to hold this wall. Like, you want to do that. Like, this is safe for you. Wow. And then you slowly, like once they get that, it's like, okay, now let's get your chin wet. Okay, great. You can get your chin wet. And then as you're doing that, I'm watching like, okay, are you going to close your mouth as like the water gets closer on your face? You know, are you going to drink this pool? Because if you are, we're going to back it up a little bit because that's not safe or enjoyable, right? Like that's another piece of it. Like another thing parents ask me all the time is like, are they going to scream? Like, are they going to cry? Are they going to hate it?
Is it traumatic?
Is it traumatic? And like, ugh, I hate that word. It's like so not traumatic. I think that there's a lot of uncertainty for kids when they, especially kids who have no familiarity with water. They're unsure. They're unsure of me. They're unsure of the pool. It might be cold. They don't know what these bright lights are if we're inside. You know, all these things are very new and different. So I like to frame it, and I believe that that is what's happening. And like, I'd be lying if I said there wasn't often crying involved, because
There's
there
crying
is.
at regular swim lessons too.
I know.
For the
That was just
record.
a good point that I never thought of.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is all new to them. You're putting your little kid in water and you're like, stop crying.
And with
like,
a stranger.
expecting them to be perfect.
Yeah.
Exactly. But really, as the kids become more competent, they get more confident, and all that starts to go away.
Yeah.
I mean, my own son cried for 5 weeks, and then one day he was just happy as a clam. Like,
That's so
that's
cool.
him on my website homepage the day he stopped crying. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. But, you know, it does stop. And I think like a crying baby is a breathing baby, you know? So, you know, I believe that swimming is a life skill. And, you know, you might not always like to get in your car seat, or you might want that granola bar, but it's dinner time and you might cry about that too. But, you know, it's something that you kind of have to learn.
Yeah.
And we do it in the absolute like gentlest way possible, because, you know, you don't want it to be fearful at all. Like I personally, and I know like all my colleagues also, like we just want kids to learn a love of the water, but like a respect and a safety and the ability to interact with it in a calm way.
I love that.
Me
so
too.
much.
Yeah. And these instructors, I mean, you guys are so dedicated to leave your lives for 6 weeks to go get training is incredible.
I know. And I also just think it speaks volumes. Like you're a pediatric nurse, but then you were a stay-at-home mom for a lot of years.
I was.
And you left that life to come do this because you were so passionate. So I think that to me was so meaningful. And I also think having this podcast, like another reminder to the moms out there, like you can do whatever you want and you can be whatever you want when you grow up.
You totally can. This for me is like a total plot twist.
I love it. You didn't write this on your bingo card.
No, I did not plan this at all. It just like came to me, and I love it. It's like the perfect marriage of all the things I love and like that are meaningful to me.
You can tell, like you can
Yeah.
tell just with
You're
the way
so
you talk
happy.
about it. It's
Yeah.
really
Yeah, you're
cool.
like shining.
Oh my
Yeah.
Yeah, you're glowing, guys.
Yeah.
You can't see it, but she's
Yeah.
glowing right
Very
now.
like passionate about it. Before we switch to some fun questions, we kind of touched on it in the beginning, but I think for people who want to investigate ISR further, like where do they go to find lessons in their area? How can they contact you?
Yeah.
All of that.
Sure. So sure. So to search for an instructor, if you're not in Boston Metro West, you would go to infantswimmingresources.com, and at the top there's an instructor locator, and you just put in your zip code and it shows you all the instructors in your area and where they teach out of. So
That's
like for
amazing.
myself, there's like a few profiles because I teach in different pools. And then if you were looking for me specifically, you could get to me that way, or through
We'll
my
tag you.
own website,
Yeah.
which will be tagged.
I love that.
And
your
Instagram.
Yep,
Yeah.
we'll tag you on
the
Instagram.
gram. Yeah.
All the ways.
All right. Should we pivot to some fun questions?
Yeah, let's do some fun ones.
Jenny, you kick it off.
Okay. What is your spirit animal?
Oh my God, this is so funny. So I just had my husband's birthday party a couple weeks ago, and we got into this huge conversation, our whole group of friends, about what our spirit animal
my God.
was.
Oh.
I'm a big cat.
I love it.
That's
Like-
amazing.
Done. Big cat.
All right.
Like
I
a
like that.
lion, a leopard,
Yeah,
tiger.
like I just feel like
that.
you
I
like
that.
protect your pride, and if someone messes with it, like you're not okay with it. But
love
like
that.
you're really happy and you're really loving and you're really great,
you
and you'll
like
do
naps?
anything for them. But don't mess.
Wait, I'm intrigued by this being a conversation. Like, what was the most surprising?
She's like, hey guys, I'm going on a podcast and they asked me what my
yeah, what are all ours? Like, was there any that you were like, wait, what? If you want to share, if not, we'll move on.
Yeah, I mean, they likened my husband to a golden retriever, which like Katie knows him, and like it's hysterical. He's like actually really smart. So maybe he's more of a lab, but he's also really loving and happy.
Yeah, but golden retrievers are smart.
Yeah, I was like, I thought you could be a little fiercer than that.
Maybe a German Shepherd. Did he like that title? Was he like, I'm into it?
I mean, he was loving the Coors Light. Like, I think he was just happy. I love that.
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, you go.
No. Okay. Yeah. Let's end with yours. I'm asking.
Okay.
What's your drink of choice if you're out
Oh,
or if you're at home?
Oh, interesting. I love. Well, I shouldn't say love. I really enjoy tequila.
Yeah, that's a love.
We get along.
And I do really like a Coors Light. Like I love a light beer. It's
Okay.
Wait,
random. You wouldn't expect it.
that's a CL Smooth. Do you ever call it that?
No,
I've never.
But now
heard
I
that.
will.
I have
I've
a
not
friend
heard
that
that
used to
either.
call them CL Smooths. That's the best answer I think we've gotten.
We,
Sorry to
yeah.
everyone else, but you win.
It's a pretty good one.
I do enjoy a good
drink of
Coors
the
Light
evening.
it's so crisp.
in the
so
hot,
good.
like a hot summer day.
From the 99 in a
It's got to be in a frosted mug.
I don't know. I like it from a bottle personally.
more than a
Oh.
can.
More than a can.
A bottle, yeah.
Yeah.
And the
But not in
Rockies
a
always
glass?
have to be blue.
No, I'm not a big beer from a glass person. I don't know what that is.
I actually agree with that statement.
I guess
Really?
it depends.
Yeah, I'd rather drink it out of the can or the bottle.
If it's a frosted glass, though,
I
Yeah.
like a glass,
Okay.
that should
especially frosted.
We should add that to some questions that we throw into people.
yeah.
Do you enjoy it?
It's gonna be polarizing, guys. Okay, and then final question: what is something that surprised you about being a mom?
Okay. So I grew up an only child. So having 3 children has been like a whole new world for me. And I remember like when my second was born, I was like, how do I possibly love this child as much as the other one, which I think is probably a common
Yes.
thread. But I think the ability to like really just keep growing your love and like make it all work and just, I don't know. I think having
I like that.
like raising
Get it.
siblings from not being one has been really eye-opening and very cool.
I love that.
That's really sweet. Did you always want 3 kids?
I did. Well, I wanted more kids, but
Yeah.
Chase wasn't having it.
What would have been your number?
I would have done 4.
Okay.
I would have done 4.
It's never too late.
But then sometimes I look at my friends who have 4 kids and I'm like, it's kind of a lot.
Yeah.
Send help.
I think, yeah.
But I do really
know.
love babies. So leaving that phase
Yes.
now, like my youngest just turned 3. So leaving that baby phase is really,
so much. It's hard.
it's a gut punch.
If
don't
you
have
would like to
babies
borrow
anymore.
my 22-month-old, you can.
I would. That's,
Amanda saw him in his prime today.
I do. And when you were away
was
the
doing
other
this move.
weekend, I did too.
Slithering.
I did
Out of
see
his
it. I didn't even know what to do. I pretended like I didn't see
He's
it.
always on the move. I was with him the other weekend and he didn't stop moving like 18 months. You forget, right? Like, because we have 3-year-olds, they'll sit down, they'll chill out, but he didn't stop moving. So when I do see Brooks, I'm like, okay, I think I'm good. But I relate to that sentiment. So.
yeah. It's true.
I think this was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your passion
you.
and your
No,
swim
thank you.
safety. And I hope I know our listeners got some amazing advice out of this. And reach out to Alex if you have any questions. We'll tag her in our stories. Cheers,
Perfect.
guys.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers.